Okay, we're going to learn how to make a fully functional vocabulary flashcard app where you can add words, shuffle words, edit the word, and remove the word. This is the finished product. If I reload the page, we're at card 1, excited. If I click review, it tells you the meaning. If I click next, it goes to number 2, right? If I go backwards, it will go to the last one, number 6, decimate. I can edit the word. Let's change this to blah, blah, blah. And I click update, and now it's blah, blah, blah. I can even add a new word. Let's say hello to say hi. And then I save it. And then you see now it's card number 7, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it has our newest card as well. We can also shuffle the cards, right? Now hello is card number 1, right? We can shuffle again. Decimate is now number 1. Oh, it's number 1 again. Hello is number 1, enormous, excited, decimate, and so on. Okay, we can even remove the word. If I remove decimate, it's gone. Number 1 is now elucidate, right? We don't see that anymore. Okay, let's go over the HTML. Very, very simple. If you look here, this is just the header section, right? Which has all of these buttons. And then we have some breaks and a line. And then let's talk about this main container. This main container has 3 things that is display flexed. The left arrow right here, the card container in green in the middle, and then the right button. Let's look at the card container. Okay, it has the review, it has everything. Everything is inside of the green container. Down here we just have a modal class which is hidden by default. Okay, and the modal is what happens when you click add word. This is the modal, or edit word, right? That's the modal too. Now CSS is very simple. Cursor pointer. The header section is display flex, right? The main container is also display flex with a height 50 dvh. Here, the 2 divs that I'm talking about, the left and the right arrow, they have to be width 100, because if you don't have that, it looks like this, right? It's ugly. Okay, the card container itself has position relative, because the edit word and remove word will be position absolute, so they exist on the bottom like this. And yes, you do need to transform translate x and y -50, because if you don't have that, it's not perfectly centered, right? And for the order buttons, that's the left and the right here, you need to transform translate 100%, or else it's going to be all the way at the top. And the word definition is by default display none. When we click review, it is display block. Okay. All right. And the JavaScript, we're going to go over step by step. But as you can see, it's very simple, right? In my data.js, I have an array of objects of all the words and some function definitions like how to shuffle, how to update the word, create, and so on, right? And then in my index, when my document loads, it's going to load the first word. Okay. Now, let's go over the JavaScript step by step. Okay, let's start with the JavaScript. On document load, I call update word, passing in the first word in our all words array. But let's define this function, update word, inside data.js. Okay. So function update word is going to take in a word, a definition, and a position, which will default to 1. Now this is going to render the word, the definition, and the card number onto our page. But how do we do that? Well, a shortcut I like to use is if you go to our HTML right here, we know that our word name has the ID word name. And remember, in JavaScript, if you don't have the same variable, any IDs you use in HTML will be automatically saved as a variable in JavaScript. Okay, so if I say word name, it will actually select this whole H3 right here. Okay, so I can do simply word name dot text content will be equal to word. Okay, and then now let's look for the definition. Where's the definition? It has the ID right here, word definition. Okay, so now word definition dot text content will be equal to the definition, and then the position. Let's check that. Where here, inside the span, it has the ID of card position. So very, very simple. card position dot text content will be equal to position. Okay. All right, and you won't see the definition, and that is because it has display none here. Let me just comment that out, and then now we see it. So now we have this working, but our arrow buttons are not working. Okay, so let's get our arrow buttons to work. Let's do the right arrow first. Okay, and then after we do the arrows, then we'll handle the add button, shuffle, and edit. Okay, so in HTML, where's the right button? The right button is here. It has an ID of right btn. So right btn dot onClick is equal to function. What do we have to do? When they click on the next or the right arrow, we want to know, hey, what's the next word? What's the next index that they're trying to click? So const next index will be equal to all words dot find index. Remember, find index returns an integer. And we have an array of objects, so we get access to that object. And we're going to find the index where the object dot word, and let's do dot to lowercase as well, is going to be equal to the current word that we have on the page. And how do we get that? From the word name right here. Okay, so we can do word name dot text content dot to lowercase, like this. Okay, now this only gives us the current index. To get the next index, we need to do +1. Okay, so if I go right here and I do +1, that's going to work. Now, how do we render the next word onto the page? Well, remember, we did function update word here. We can simply call it again. This time, we're going to pass in all words at next index, which we just found, okay, dot word. And then we're also going to pass in its definition. Oops, let me copy this. Dot definition. And we're going to pass in the position, which is next index +1. You need the +1 because indexes start at 0, but positions start at 1. It doesn't make sense to say card 0. It's card 1. All right. So now when I click, you see that it works, right? From 1 to 6. Now, what happens if I wanted to go back to 1 when I click 6? First of all, let's change our next index to let. And then right here, we can simply do, hey, if the next index is now equal to all words dot length, which means they're on the last card, we're going to set next index back to 0 so that the update word below it will run correctly. See, when you click on 6, it starts at 1 again. Okay, the left one is very, very similar. Change this to left. Okay, for the left one, instead of +1, we're going to do -1. Okay. And then, hey, if next index is equal to -1, because let's say if they're at card index 0 and they click left, its previous index would be -1. And if it's -1, that means you have to start now at the last item. So our next index will be all words dot length -1. Okay. And then instead of next index, let's call this prev index, like this. All right, let's see if it works. So our right button works, our left button also works. Okay, so now we have no errors. We can go forward and we can go backwards. All right, now let's work on our review button. First of all, let me uncomment this so the display none goes back. Okay, we want it so that when we click review, we see the word. So let's go here. Let's go here, index.js. And review is also an ID that I gave to the here. Let's call it review btn so it's more readable. So review btn dot onClick is equal to function. Now, when we click this, we want the button itself dot style dot display will be none. And then we want the definition to be block. How do we get that? It's ID word definition, like this. style.display is equal to block. Okay, so now when I click review, it works. If I click next, the review button is gone. How do we fix this? Well, in our right and in our left functions, let me just copy these. So when we click the next or the previous, we want the review button style display to go back to unset, which is its original display. And then we want the word definition display to go back to none. Okay. And then I can copy that for the left one also. All right. So now if I review excited and I click next, the dash is not reviewed. We can review it. We can go back and excited is covered up again. All right, let's go to decimate, review, it works. Okay, let's move on. All right, now let's tackle the hard part. Let's tackle add word and remove word. If we go to our index.js here, if they click the add button or the edit button, it's running the same function, just passing in different arguments. And the function is called create modal. So in data.js, I'm going to do function create modal, taking in a type. Now, when they click either one of these, I want to change the display of my modal to not be display none. Okay, so I can say my modal.style.display is equal to block. And then here I can do an if statement. So I can do, hey, if type is equal to what? Let's say we go back to index.js, add word. So if type is add word, now I'm going to say my modal.inner HTML will be equal to something, right? So I'm going to paste it in. It's going to be equal to this whole thing right here. And this, when they click, it will create a modal that pops up. It's going to have an input right here. Okay, so let's try that. If we click add, right now, you see we can add a new word and a new definition. But if we click save, nothing happens, right? And if we click X right here, it doesn't close either. So let's tackle that. So how do we make sure that clicking the X will close it? Well, it has its own ID, close modal. And we just generated the HTML, so we can select its ID like this. So close modal. .onClick. Let's do an anonymous function because it's really short. And then we can just say my modal.style.display is back to none. Okay, so right now if we add and we change our mind and we click it, it's going to go away. All right. Now, our save button has an ID of save new word, btn. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this. Save new word btn. .onClick will be equal to a regular function. Okay, so how do we save this, right? Well, first we have to get the value that they typed in, right? So we can do something like all words dot push, and we're gonna push in a whole new object, right? The whole new object, the word name. How do we get the word name? Well, it's from the input right here. And remember, for input, you need to do new word dot value. And then what's our definition going to be? Well, our definition is just going to be this right here. New word definition dot value. Right? Okay, now when they click Save New Word button, we also want the modal to close. Right? So display none. And then how do we render the new word? Because when we add the new word, we want the user to see that they got the new word on the screen. So we can just call, I forgot what the function was called. Oh, update word. Whoops. So we can call update word. And then what are we going to pass in? Well, we're going to pass in all words at, well, when we push it in, it's going to be the last value, right? So we can do all words at all words dot length -1, and then we can do dot word, and then we can do the dot definition as well. Dot definition, And what is the position? Well, it's going to be the last position, right? Since we just added it. So all words dot length. Okay, so on the right, I'm going to add a word. I'll just say blah, blah, and then blah, blah. And then if I save it, you see now we have it as card number 7, right? We still have all the other ones. Let's add one more, A, and now we have card number 8. Cool, right? Okay, so this is if type is equal to add word. Let's do the edit. What if type is equal to, let's see what we called it here. We called it passing in string edit. So if type double equals to edit, then we're going to run a new function. All right, for type edit, it'll be very similar. I'm going to paste it in. My modal has a new inner HTML now, right? And you have to re-add the close modal on click because we generated new HTML. Okay, so now if I click edit word, the first thing I want to do is I want these inputs to be pre-filled with the current word and the current definition. How do we do that? Well, here's the input ID, current word. I can say current word dot value will be equal to whatever this text content already was. So that will be, let's see, where is our word name right here? Dot text content. Word name dot text content, right? And then this current def for the input, current def dot value will be equal to right here, word definition dot text content. Dot text content. Okay. So with those, when I click edit for excited, you see that it's pre-filled in. All right, now let's work on the update button. The update button has an ID here too. Update word button. Right, so update word button dot on click is equal to a, whoops, not fun, is equal to a regular function. Okay, what do we want to do? We want to know which word and which index that they're editing from our all words array, right? So how do we find the index? Well, const index will be equal to, we can use the card position right here, card position dot text content, which gives us the position, but we want the index, so we -1 here. And this is a string, and when you do minus instead of plus, it converts them to numbers. So we don't have to change that string into a number. Now that we have the index, right, we can say all words at index. Remember, we have an array of objects, so we have to put everything in an object. The word name will now be equal to current word dot value, and the definition will be equal to current def dot value. All right, so we just updated our database. So now we're going to render everything to the screen with update word. Right? And then we still have the index. We can say all words at index.word, all words dot index.definition, and we also pass in the position, which is index +1. Okay. And then let's see, let's edit. Whoops. And I forgot that when you click update, the modal should also close. Okay. All right, let's try again. Let's edit this word from excited, add a bunch of D's. And now you see that it is edited. Okay. And everything else still remains the same, but the first one is edited. Let's edit the 6th one. Edit decimated with a bunch of D's. Now it works. Okay. All right, cool. Now let's work on our shuffle and our remove word, which is actually a lot easier than add. All right, let's tackle our shuffle function first, which runs when I click shuffle words. And since I use let for my array, I can do a shortcut like all words is equal to all words dot sort, and we'll take advantage of how sort works by returning 0.5 minus math.random. Math.random generates a float between 0 and 0.999, and because of how sort works, minusing it from 0.5 will give us a semi-random sort, and that's good enough for me. Okay? And then we can call update word, passing in all words at 0 dot word and all words at 0 dot definition, because we just want to display the first one after the sort. And we don't need to pass in a position because the default position is already 1, which is what we want. So right now, you see card number 1 is excited. If I shuffle it, it's still excited because It's just random. Okay? But now if I shuffle it again, the number 1 is dash now. Number 2 is hallucinate. Excited is number 3. If I shuffle, again, enormous is now number 1. Cool. So we are done with shuffling. All right, finally, let's tackle our remove word button. But before that, if you notice, this remove word button got moved from bottom to top. That's because I added the letters BTN to it. So I have to change it in the CSS. Add it here and add it here. And everything goes back to what it should be. All right, remove word is actually pretty simple. Now, once again, we need the index. Const index will be equal to card position dot text content -1. And then we can do all words dot splice, and we're splicing from the index we found, taking only 1. And then we can call update word once again, and we're going to pass in all words at 0, dot word and dot definition, and that's actually all that we're going to need. We don't need to pass in the position because when you remove it, I wanted to restart to card number 1 again. Okay, so here we have card 1, excited. I click remove, it's gone. Card number 1 is now dash. Okay, I'm going to remove card number 4, elucidate, remove. We no longer see elucidate. Now we only have 4 cards. If I remove another one, we now only have 3 cards, 1, 2, and 3. Cool, right?